Kulisha Kenya ni jukumu la fahamu Kenya.
Hello there and good morning. Thank you for joining us on this 9th day of March 2023. And today we are going to be having a great conversation, and we are talking about food safety and food security in the era of climate change. And we are joining you live from KTN News and also KTN Farmers. And if you'd like to follow this conversation also, we are live on a standard group. Just go to the website and get to this platform so that we can have the conversation. And today I'm joined by a very distinct panel, and we are going to be talking about this issue even as we continue now, even as far back as the industrial age. There has been very little concern that the carbon emissions from human activities were sufficient to cause global warming. Now, climate change is here with us, and its consequences are enormous. Now, the record temperatures reported by meteorologists and increasing natural disasters of epic proportions have really affected many of the communities within the country and also even Africa as we look at it. And today, breakfast discussion aims to shed light on what needs to be done to alleviate this threat, which is a great impediment to the efforts to achieve food nutrition and security within the Horn of Africa and even the globe. And with me are distinguished panel, and they are going to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with the gentleman sitting to my left.
Good morning, Kenya. Eustace Kiari is my name. I work for Kenya Organic Agriculture Network, where we promote organic agroecology and other sustainable forms of agriculture. Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, thank you for joining us. We can move to the next.
Morning, Kenya. My name is Hamisi Williams. I work for United Nations Food and Agriculture Organizations. I have the programs, and thanks for Standard Group for having us. I think it's conversations like this that is really going to have to start changing the mindset and everything else we do about climate change. Thank you.
Good morning, Kenya. My name is Jafet Iro, work in the department from Meteorological Services Division. Thank you.
Good morning, Kenya. My name is Gogi Mutura. I'm the CEO of Sustainable Agriculture Community Development Program, also called SACDEP. And I'm an agriculturalist by profession and very keen on this topic on climate change and food security. Welcome.
Good morning, Kenya. My name is Lusike Wasilwa. I'm the Director of Crop Systems of Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization. So we're here to give you what we need to do and why are we not doing it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and that is the panel that is going to be giving us their insights and their expertise when it comes to food security in the era of climate change. Remember, we are live on KTN News and KTN Farmers TV. Join us there also, even on all our social media platforms on this day. All right, and now we are going to also get to the conversation and start with even looking at the reports that came out almost 2 weeks ago of depressed rainfall, where now we are going to be having the long rains that we are used to this year. The report shows that they are going to be less than we have expected. Your reaction to this, sir?
Thank you. I think the report show not a very good picture going forward, and I think it's time we started doing things differently. We need to change the way we do our agriculture, the way we produce, the practices that we adopt, and prioritize also in terms of like water harvesting, issues to do with water harvesting, and also adoption of practices that are more resilient, like agroecology, and also at consumer level, we also need to change the way we eat, the food that we eat as consumers, so that we diversify. If you look at our diets today, they have been narrowed to 4 starches: maize, potatoes, rice, wheat as the key, and with the dwindling rainfall, we need to change the way also we eat, the way we produce.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And he has talked about diversifying agriculture. When you talk about diversifying agriculture, what are we really talking about?
Thank you. Maybe let me put some statistics, just for what you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Because we say depressed rains,
Yes.
things like this, but you could look at it in two ways. First, in the whole of Africa today, we are facing unprecedented levels of drought. This is lasting the 5th, and we're heading to the 6th season, failed season of rain. And the latest IPC report, which FAO really participates in, just compiled last month, indicates that with the failed short season rain that we just passed there, the numbers of the threatened population, especially in the north, in Kenya alone, moved from about 4.3 million to now 5.4 million. You're moving about 1 million in a period of about 6 months, getting into the bracket which is IPC 4 and above. This is not very pleasant news, it's a bit dangerous news. But that is on one aspect of it, which is the drought. The other aspect of this is just when we have the issue of climate change, it's a global issue, and we should look at it like that. Because now on other parts you have droughts, on other parts you have floods, you have those very many factors that combined together are really threatening our planet. And therefore, the issue of planet, people, really we have to take it very seriously. So these numbers are not encouraging at all. But coming to what he just said, I think we need to look at two things. For the situation we are in today, there are those emergency interventions that we need to look at. And I think the government is doing something about this, individual teams are doing that, NGOs and so many other people. But we have to move from there and start looking at long-term solutions. How do we, one, build resilience of our vulnerable population so that they are able to survive the vagaries of drought, the vagaries of the emergencies that are caused by climate change? What are those areas that can help us build the resilience? For instance, he talked about water. Actually, just before he came in, a boy from my village, a place called Alendo, is called Mark, just told me, just tell these guys, for us here, what we need is water and water and water. And that is from real farmer, youth in the village. And you can see they know exactly what they need to be given so that they do these things. For us in FAO now, what we're promoting mostly is those areas like climate smart agriculture. How do we make sure that when we do agriculture, because let's not forget, the agricultural practices also contribute to climate change. So if we don't do them well, then we are contributing there. Thank you.
All right, Japheth, your contribution to this, the report on the suppressed rainfall.
Yes, thank you so much. So the report is out. Kenyans are informed, just like the previous season, that is October, November, December. Below normal rains or depressed rains. And the most important thing I could say, it is time that once we have the information, once the information has come out, then there should be actions that should accompany the information. KMD can give you very good weather forecast.
Yes.
This is what we anticipate, this is what we project is going to happen. But it is also the responsibility of all stakeholders, different arms of government, to make necessary actions to mitigate the impact or the effect of weather and climate variability. Without doing that, it will be just, a cycle, all the time, KMD coming out and saying this is what we expect, and then the floods come, they sweep people out, the drought comes, it kills our livestock, leads to crop failure without taking the necessary actions. I think this is a very powerful forum, and we have the expertise here,
yes,
who are supposed now to tell Kenyans, with the anticipated below normal rains, what kind of now crops. It's good we have an expert from Kari, Kenya, and they are doing a fantastic job. We have different crop varieties that have come out. So farmers in different agroecological zones need to be informed that this is now what you need to plant this time when we expect below normal rains. I think that would be a very good that would be a very good thing. And then we you know, weather does not only affect crops, it also affects livestock. Then we have the pastoral regions, especially the northeastern region. I've worked there, and I know I've engaged communities there. What actions are these people who are engaged in pastoralism? What actions are they supposed to take now when we expect depressed rains? Because with depressed rains, no pasture regeneration, or pasture regeneration will be poor. So what actions do those pastors need to take now to avoid losses? Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Mr. Mutura.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for putting up this question. Food security and food safety in Kenya rotates around three things. And therefore, you have to look at this question from a holistic angle. Not one size fits all. Three things. One, it rotates around good soils, water, and energy. Good soils, it means that we use the natural fertility of the soil. Production and supply of artificial fertilizers is a short-term thinking. The solution is on good, fertile soils. Soils start being fertile, we damage them, and therefore we start bringing in outside materials. In terms of water, water must come from somewhere. And in this case, it comes from the rain. Rain comes because we have maintained good forest cover. Good forest cover is not only on the highlands, but also on the farmlands, and more importantly, in the dry regions. If we don't take care of the forest areas, if we decide to do shamba system, which damages the forests, then we don't get water supply from the rivers, and that's why we have dry riverbeds today. Government is saying we are going to do 1,100 so many dams. That water must come from somewhere, and that somewhere is in reforestation. In terms of energy, which is the third component, we don't, 70% of the population of Kenya uses firewood. So we cut down the trees for firewood, and we burn charcoal for the urban communities. So renewable use of energy, your renewable sources of energy is a solution. The moment to combine those three things and provide good understanding, and you look at the dry lands of Kenya, which can produce a lot of wood and firewood and forests, then it means we are managing the hydrological cycle, the rainfall, the supply of water through the rivers, supply water from the groundwater, and then we have our combined effort to have continued food production, storage, and therefore food security.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move on and just give us your insights on this report, and also just add to us, what are some of the, like he mentioned, what are some of the crops that farmers can look at?
Actually, we have the answers to this report, and what was mentioned by my FAO colleague on the climate smartness. We keep talking about climate smartness. What is climate smart? Are we growing climate smart crops, using climate smart technologies? Are we eating climate smart foods? What are we doing? You know, we are losing 40% of the food we grow. We never are able to sell or eat it. 40% just disappears. So imagine if we reduce that loss, would have increased our production by 40%. Maybe if I translate that to money, we're losing 40 million. How do we conserve or stop the loss of 40 million? So what are we doing as CalRO? It's all about being climate smart, climate intelligence. If you go to Google Play Store and you write CalRO, about 90 mobile applications will come up. One of them is on crop selector. It tells you what crops to grow where you are. So you put your county up to your sub-county, up to your ward, and it will tell you exactly what to grow. But also other products we're having are on crop suitability. You just don't plant a mango anywhere. There are areas where you can plant that mango and it will do well. So crop suitability or land suitability maps. This is what Kenyans have to use. The other thing we have on the Google Play Store is KAOP, Kenya Agriculture Observatory platform. When you go there, and for 2 years I've steered my parents correct. When they want to plant maize in Kitale, I say, no, wait. Then I tell them, plant now, it will rain tomorrow at this time. And exactly like a witch doctor, it rains. Those tools are on our phones. For 2 years, my parents haven't failed. And then the kind of crops you're growing, the climate smart crops. We have a bean variety called Nyota. It is so drought tolerant. It's high in iron and zinc. When my mom planted 6 types of beans, including Luahaha for Luyas or Mwitimania for Kikuyus, it was Nyota that came out. Those two survived because that's why we know them by their names. But Nyota was able to produce. It was high yielding, it is low flatulence, and it's very nutritious. So where are these climate smart? Why are our farmers not planting them? When will the government give Calro enough money to make sure that what I'm saying now, all the farmers know? Because my dad doesn't have a smartphone, neither does my mom. It's only those with smartphones that will be able to gather that. How do we get that information out to Kenyans so that we stop losing this 40% of the food we're growing? And our population is growing. The land under production is shrinking. Now we have to produce on very small places. What are these climate smart, high yielding technologies? Imagine Calro, we have them all. Thank you.
All right, so just before we even move on, Dr. Lusike, before we move on, so it means it's lack of information that we lack, and also even access to information. So for the farmers in the village, because I'm imagining my grandmother in the village or any person who's doing farming in the village, how will she access these applications that you are talking about? Because when you look at it, they wake up in the morning, they go to the farm, they spend almost 3/4 of the day there, and then they go back home, and then the next day it's the same thing. So what needs to be done in order to make sure that at least any person in a remote area can also access this information?
We need to look at channels of communication. The radio is still very strong. You find radios everywhere. Another channel of communication is the church. People are always going to church. Another channel of communication is demonstration farms. This is where now Calro is facilitated by the government to set up demonstrations in places as people go to the market. They can see and they can learn. We have these extensionists, the plant doctors, that are in certain markets where if a farmer has a crop that has an issue of a pest or a disease, they can go to the doctor, and the doctor diagnoses and gives them a solution. Such simple things, but they need some support and funding. So what we need to do is find out, where does your grandmother operate? Does she go to church? We make sure we go through church. The other day, Calro distributed a lot of sweet potato. It was through church and the chief. So we use those channels to be able to reach these people. Because, as I said, my mom and dad don't have smartphones. They have those small ones that stay on for 10 days. So how do you get that information to them? So we'll use radios. We'll go talk in schools. We'll go to churches and talk in churches. We will have demonstrations alongside the road, inside the road, whether it's at Tibet, in Calro centers, even at marketplaces. We ask counties, give us a space where we can put a demonstration of the technologies that make sense for your region. That's what we need to do. But all of these things cost money. What I need to ask is, how much money does the government of Kenya give Calro to be able to do that?
Thank you so much. All right, now let's move on. Talking about technology, on that part, is drought resistant seeds something that we need to look at?
Thank you. Yeah, with drought and dwindling rainfall, we need to think about early maturing varieties, those seeds you're talking about. We also need to look at the indigenous seeds. We have some indigenous seeds which are very resilient. They take shorter time, but they have been ignored. If we look at the millets, the sorghums, not many people eat them today. They're not among the main categories of diet. And I think it's high time that we went back to those resilient indigenous crops. Having said so, I think there is also a lot of unlearning and learning that we need to do. For a long time, farmers have been trained on quick fixes. You have an issue with soil fertility, use this fertilizer, and then it works. What has happened over the years? In 2014, there was a research that was undertaken by Egerton University and Tegemeo Institute. And they found out that most of the Kenyan soils are dead. They are acidic. If you look at the basket of Kenya, the Kenya basket, the Rift Valley, farmers used to harvest 40, 50 bags per acre of maize. Today, they hardly get 20. Why? Because the soils are dead. We need to rework on the soil. We need to build the fertility of the soil so that we feed the soil and the soil feeds the plant. How do we do that? By using the natural fertility methods, increasing the organic matter. And this is where I'm saying that even farmers, they need to unlearn some of the quick fixes and learn some of the sustainable ways of improving the soil fertility so that it can support crop production.
All right, and now let's move on. And also, he's spoken about soils. And people who, in many communities in the arsal regions, when you look at the type of soil that is found there and the type of soil that is found maybe in the tropics area, what is the difference, and what do you think needs the people in the arsal region need to look at in terms of production, even soil testing, making sure that the pHs are just on the right levels, and what are the soils lacking in those areas?
I think, maybe the soils in those areas would be probably lacking water. They may just be fertile.
Yes.
Even more fertile than probably the arable areas that we talk about. And that's why I think earlier we said that let's fix this issue of water, come up with innovative ways of making sure that even those areas can get some level of water. Then they will be in production. But this is the point I want to advance to. One, when you do what's called mapping, and you want to come up with a master plan for either crops or livestock, something which I think Kenya now needs. And I know in the ministry, State Department of Livestock, we are working with them now to come up with a livestock master plan. This will help you to know what crop is grown where. If it is livestock, which breed of livestock do you keep where? That's a fundamental point that we need to do, because it will avoid just the knee-jerk reaction and ad hoc, keeping of livestock or growing of crops just anyhow. That's one thing. If you are talking of the north, I mean, this is a livestock area, and the livestock is just good. Actually, now they contribute to about 48% of the 24% that agriculture sector contributes to the GDP. And that sector, if well organized, can do better than crops, I tell you. So we could just concentrate on making sure that the livestock production is done well. We look at the issue of livestock health in those areas. We find how do we get them fodder. And here I am even thinking of, like, when you talk of human food, we have strategic food reserve. Why don't we have strategic feed reserve for livestock? So that we have like feedlots that are in this country, done purposely to support when we have the scarcity. And then let me come to a point which is related to a question that is lingering here. When we talk of climate smart agriculture, are those technologies there? They're there. And people know them, and I think we've talked about them here. But there is a point in agriculture sector in this country that we have to tackle. Whatever these technologies are there in the laboratory, even demonstration centers, those are labs. The farmer is somewhere else distant. And the normal agriculture that we all learned is that there has to be a connection between the lab and the farm. What is that connection? Extension. This is dead in this country like a dodo. And we're not pretending about it. And until we raise that, in whatever means we want to raise it, we don't advocate for probably the old way of the uniformed extension person. No, maybe we have modern ways of doing this. And that's why in FAO now we're trying to work with the government to promote what we're calling e-extension through the Kenya Integrated Agriculture Management Information Service. So that the information that is from KALRO, from any laboratory, KFIS, wherever it is, can reach the farmer in time, in a timely manner, and it can still be valuable. Food security, if you allow me just 1 minute, will require 3 things. Is that food available? That's availability. When it's available, is it accessible? Once it's accessible, is it affordable? These 3 things. And somebody that will connect the lab and the farm to make sure that this works, extension.
All right, don't just hold on to the mic. The question is still on you. So you spoke about livestock. And now, food security, when we look at pastoralist communities and they're relying on livestock, what are some of the capacity building things that we can do to make sure that at least they look to, they don't over-rely on livestock production only, but also get into crop production?
Yep. Okay. First of all, let me also demystify that. You don't have to have them really go into crop production.
Yes.
We also need livestock, so they could be there.
Yes.
But coming to your question is that we have so many other ways. We need to sensitize these teams, and we need to also provide them with means to go into crop production. I mean, if they're in fairly very dry areas and you tell them to go to crop production, it's not working.
Yes.
But this is one of the reasons why I think the issue of the dams are coming up. Irrigated agriculture, because if we do, we are able to support these people, avail water for them. Water harvesting, and there you'll allow me to just advance a point, 2 points actually. Water harvesting. We have scenarios in the north where probably when it rains, it pours there, and all that flood ends up in the Indian Ocean. Why don't we pick this through the dams and ponds, even if we are not able to do boreholes? This should be easy to do. And those dams and ponds will last 3 months, 4 months, until probably maybe there is another cycle. And then we have to support them with the cottage-like kind of irrigation. You know, the kitchen garden type.
Yes.
So that it's a package. If you go to Amiran here, they have such type of packages, and a farmer would be able to just do something small. FAO together with UNHCR and WFP, if I take you to Turkana in a place called Kaluboye, where we are working with the refugees there to integrate them into the local community, you will see what that has done. A small pan, and the communities and the refugees are using it to do their crops, to do their vegetables. So it works, and it can work even in the dry areas. So this is something that I think we can do. But my other point about water, because we talk about water harvesting, there are so many ways that we can harvest water. But the biggest challenge, and try if you have not, is in the areas where we even have considerably good levels of rainfall. The cost of harvesting water in this country is prohibitive. People are not able to afford it. The youths just can't afford it. Somebody with one roof of mabati is not able to gutter that roof. I can tell you, because the cost of the plastics, the gutters, this is very prohibitive. So that's an area also that will call for what? Policy intervention, and to some extent even a legal intervention, so that some of these things are zero rated, then allows them to be availed at a cost that is affordable to people in the villages, so that they can afford to get some small tank there, 5,000 liters, use it to irrigate some small garden, and then this will be food security. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move on to Mr. Japheth. All right, the issue of rainfall, and I'm just going to go back there. Kenyans don't trust the forecast. Many Kenyans usually don't trust the forecast. And now that we are going to the long rains, how do farmers now plan with the forecast that is available in order for them to just know what to plant and when to plant it, and so that they can plan very well? And where can they get this information?
Allow me first to correct you. Kenyans now have confidence in what the forecast that KMD is giving out. And like I mentioned, the previous season, October-November season, which was over 80% accurate. You see, when you get 80%, that is an A. Now, coming to the issue of the information, the forecast that has been given, where we have a disconnect, because like now you are talking of what kind of, do we go for crop tolerant, drought tolerant crops, crop varieties, which are there? Yes, for this particular season, that is very important. That is the right action. Farmers be encouraged to plant those varieties that take a shorter duration to mature, don't require a lot of rainfall. But when again the season, for example, like coming season, if the forecast says we are going to have normal, up to above normal rains, then you don't have to go back and plant that drought tolerant crop. Because I know we have Daktari here. I was going through the list for the different crop varieties. That was released, was in 2020, August. The different crop varieties, national list for crop varieties. You find that most of those drought-resistant crops, they are not very high yielding. But at least a farmer is guaranteed to harvest something if the seasonal rains are expected to be below normal, which is a good thing to do at this particular, like now, this particular season. So what I can say in a nutshell, Kenyans should have the culture, should try to all the time get to know what does KMD, what season are we expecting? And then let all arms of government, Ministry of Agriculture, carry, you know, in the agriculture value chain, we have different players. We have the business people. Out there, I'm almost sure they are selling those varieties that require high amount of rainfall. Because for the business person, he's not very keen on what he's selling to the farmer. But I would like a situation where we are in a country when a government department that has been mandated to issue forecast has issued a certain advisory, then the other relevant arms of government move into action. Like, what is it that has been stocked in different agroecological zones? Can you now stock those varieties that are likely to do or to yield something given the information, the forecast that has been issued? And this should not be like, now from now henceforth, this is what you are going to be planting. This is something that needs to be changed. This is a decision that is made every season. If the rains are above normal, or we expect good rains, then let us take advantage of the good rains, plant those high-yielding varieties, so that the farmer is able to also harvest much and put much money into his pocket. And of course guarantee food security. But if the season is bad, then ensure that especially the areas where, let the right seed varieties be given, distributed to those farmers. That way, at least we could have taken good actions to mitigate the effects of weather and climate variability.
All right, Japheth, I'm going to cut you short, and we're just going to jump to Dr. Lusike to just support what Japheth has talked about in terms of varieties and the accessibility to the varieties. And we understand also there is a scientific exhibition or workshop happening very soon at Calro. So is this going to really contribute to this? You can talk about that also. So first of all, you can start with the varieties, and then you go to the demonstrations.
Yeah, we have a lot of varieties. We breed for different agroecological zones. You know, Kenya has a temperate zone, we have a tropical zone, and we have the ASALs that are over 80%. So when we're breeding varieties, we're breeding for different agroecological zones. Where will they perform the best? There are some of those crops that will do well in a wide area, so they are widely adaptable. So right now, there's been a big push on growing the more nutritious foods. As mentioned by one of the panelists, these are things like the millets. You know, this is the year of the millets, so I must mention finger millets, very nutritious.
Yes.
And also quite drought tolerant, the sorghums. And the new one that we don't even know is that, do you know we have teff in Kenya? What is teff? Teff is what the Ethiopians eat as injera, but the stem can be used as an animal feed. It grows and matures within 45 days. And hopefully, by the end of the month, 6 of these teff varieties, 6 of the 35 calros developed will be released. So we are responding to the climate. We are creating diversity. We can't just grow the 4 major foods, the maize, the wheat, the rice, and the potatoes. No, Kenya is biodiversity rich. When these communities in these ASAL areas in Turkana, what were they surviving on? Wild fruits. So you ask, what is Calro doing on wild fruits? Hey, come and see what we're doing. We're working on guavas, on the jackfruits, on the gooseberries. We're working on all these wild fruits to make sure we conserve them because they're very drought tolerant, very drought resilient, and they can enrich the landscape. That's what we're doing now. Do you know a guava a day will keep your prostate healthy? Some of you people don't even eat guavas. You're just going to eat apples and funny-looking fruit. And instead of those that we should eat that are resilient, that contribute to enriching our landscapes and also contribute to what a lot of farmers say, ukimbana miti inavuta mvua. So those are the things we're doing in terms of diversity of crops. Come to Calro. We have a lot. And we're not just introducing them, but we're also showing you how to utilize them. It's conservation through utilization. You know? How do you eat sorghum? You mill it, make a flour, and make ugali. But you can also make pancakes, you can also make beer, you can also make sausages, you can also make pilau. These are the other forms of utilizing sorghum, even bioenergy from sorghum. We need to diversify utilization of these crops. It's not just about releasing. We have over 350 maize varieties of Kenya, 161 of them from Calro. But what is grown? Hybrid 614, 70% of the maize. So it's not about how many varieties you have. It's those ones that we're encouraging to grow, like Nyota bean. Those ones that we're encouraging to grow now. Teff is coming. That's the new baby on the block. Finger millet, so nutritious, it's good for our health. We've become unhealthy, HIV, AIDS, and all of that. Why are we eating? We're not eating enough finger millet. Also, when you look at these foods, it's not about how many bags they produce per acre. It's how many calories you get per acre. Maize, you'll get 7.5 million calories per acre. Rice, the same, 7.5 million calories. Wheat, 3 million calories. Sweet potato, 10.2 million calories. And that's why Calro, 1 Acre Fund, and SIP are promoting the production of sweet potato because you get 10.2 million calories per acre when you plant them. Potato, our second food security crop, 9.2 million calories. Now we have about 67 potato varieties. The biggest one is Sangi, a farmer-selected variety. What are you saying? We're working closely with these people. We have these varieties. We're getting them out there. We're making sure they're climate smart. We're looking at how much water do they need. How do we change the farmers from rain-fed production to irrigation? By 2030, 80% of our food will come through the ASAL because these people are irrigating now. How do we change? Do you know that 98% of the tomatoes grown in Kenya are grown under rain-fed? Yeah? And then 2% are grown under irrigation, and about 2%, because 0.05% is grown under the covered agriculture, the greenhouses. Did you know that? When are we going to change our farmers? Our land sizes are getting smaller. To grow crops that are climate smart and actually make sense. To grow crops under irrigation. To grow crops while making sure we're maintaining soil health. We're now promoting the use of biochar, bonchar. Biochar comes from biomass, bonchar from bones. We're promoting this kind of soil enriching, growing with legumes that nitrogen feed the soil, like mukuna. If you grow your mango with mukuna, that is the legume, it will nitrogen feed that mango. It will cover the soil for conservation agriculture. Therefore, water will not be evaporated, and you'll do well. I can talk to you tomorrow. I'm a woman. You should allow me to talk 7 times a month.
All right, we need to move. We need to move, Dr. Lusike. We're still on you. Actually, before we even go for a break, are these varieties that you're mentioning, all these technologies, available during the exhibition that you're going to have?
Yes, they are. And I brought this to make sure you see. I hope you're filming this. We're going to have exhibitions, this time not just here in Nairobi. We've been accused. We're going to have exhibitions in 17 different locations. We wanted to have them at our 53 centers, but we've managed 17 locations, so the farmers don't have to travel so far. And they can go to these places and then now see what are those technologies that are relevant for them. We have our first CalRO Scientific Conference. We're celebrating 10 years of CalRO. We have done extremely well. So we're now asking the public, come and see what CalRO can do. Research can give you what we've done, how we're responding to you. We don't have money to come to all of you, but surely you can save some of your money to come and visit with us. Come, and then even those who can't go, they'll be available, courtesy of you, Standard Group. They'll be available online, where you can be able to virtually look at an exhibition without even having gone there. We're really going to show the kind of technologies, the diversity of crops that we have, and livestock also. I'm not a livestock person, that we have in CalRO, so that you're able to see them. And I'm hoping, the Director General has hoped and has lamented that we will be having this every year, not just now. It has taken us 10 years to get here, but you know, a baby has to crawl, walk, run, and then jump. And now we're jumping.
All right, thank you so much. And we had jumped you when we were speaking about the varieties that we have. And now, going forward, how can farmers make sure that they even survive through this season? Give us your contribution.
Thank you. One of the matters which is really bothering us in development is whether we have a functional, articulate rural development policy. In the institutions where we have no proper rural development strategy, then we start seeing situations where most of the policies are just put together, but they don't develop people. We talked about the soils. You asked whether the pastoral community areas have good soils. They're fantastic soils. But let's not go there and tell them to dig up that land and put up maize. Let us improve on what they have. They're experts in livestock production. What they only need is water and slaughterhouses for their animals. That's all. They'll grow from there. So in terms of varieties, this country is divided into 3 components: the high rainfall, the medium rainfall, and the low rainfall areas. There are crops to do there, to do in those areas. There are enterprises to do in those areas. Let the high rainfall people produce their tea and coffee and banana. Let the medium ones produce their sorghums, their cassava, and their millets. Let the low rainfall people give them water and let them do the livestock. The soils are fantastic for that. But they also need to add more. They need to do reforestation because they consume energy and they can provide a lot of energy to the urban areas. So it's getting the right thing for the right regions and for the right people. And that is only done well with the rural development policy. In terms of support, education, extension, there are the county governments. All of them have ministries of agriculture and livestock and energy. They have the personnel. Let these people get out in a very good plan with good information packages, and they go to the people. That's all we need. Finally, we always approach our food security from production. We always forget the consumption end. So let us work on the consumption end as well. Let the consumption the marketing, the consumption be the catalyst to push for production. Good markets, production will take care of itself.
All right, thank you so much. Now, we have been talking to this distinguished gentleman and lady about this issue, and we are going to go for a short break. We'll be back with more. Remember, don't forget, the hashtag is Farm Kenya Breakfast, and another hashtag also is food security. Hashtag Farm Kenya, hashtag food security. All right, we also have a live audience here with us, and when we come back at the tail end of the conversation, we'll have a question and answer session where we'll be engaging to even get the contributions of the audience. All right, now we are going to go for a short break. We are live on KTN News and KTN Farmers TV. We'll be back with more. Don't go too far. Let us just engage in this conversation.
Join us as we discuss the threats and opportunities to food security in the country and how urgent action to combat climate change and minimize its disruptions is integral to food security. Follow the discussion on all our social media platforms. Standard Group, Farm Kenya, working to secure your growth. Brought to you by Farm Kenya through its partners.